Hey there, so today we have another blind beers, and this one's slightly different. I actually know what the beers are, and this is going to be between Von Trapp Kolsch and Von Trapp Helles. So these are not traditional German, from Germany examples of the beers, but I think Von Trapp does a pretty good job at their styles. And so this is from Munich, this is Munich Helles, which is a style that's obviously from Bavaria. It's going to be like a malt forward, something grainy, light lager. It's going to be a little less hoppy than your Pilsners, actually decent less hoppy, really showing off the malt. Whereas a Kolsch is actually quite similar. If you look on BJC, if you try to compare them, it's going to be slightly malty lager. It's going to have a little bit of fruitiness because it is actually an ale that is lagered. So it's ale yeast strain, but then they lager it, they condition it for at colder temperatures for a longer amount of time, sort of what you would literally what you do for lager. So they're going to have a lot of overlap in being slightly malty, have a little bit of that grainy flavor. They're going to be not that hoppy, and you know, so with the traditional Kolsch, some of them actually use wheat, so there are two of them that actually have a little bit of more colors to them. But I'm going to do this full blind and try to see what I can pick out and see if I can really pick out the differences between these two beers. And again, I could do this side by side and do a blind that way, but that allows for a 50-50 guess. At breweries and you know, well-known ones, they have quality assurance people. They're literally people that get hired just to do tests and test the beer and you know, find out if it's to spec and everything like that. And also they train these tasters on all flavors and all that stuff like that. And so along with that, instead of doing a 50-50, which can be guessed, and they do triangle tests, and this is what Brewlosophy uses to test tasters on whether they can figure out the differences. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been just circling this around. I do not know which one's which. This is full blind, by the way. I cannot see anything through this. So let's dig into this one first. Yeah, number one on I guess, your left. So this one has a little bit of fruity quality to it. It almost has like a little bit like a coconut thing going on. I know it sounds strange, but yeah, it's mostly just a graininess. I do have these a little cold. Yeah, it's just that light kind of like, not quite toasty, but a little bit sweet and grainy. Quite grainy. And it has a beautiful, just like upfront sweetness to it. Almost like, again, it almost has like a sweetness and then toasty quality. So it almost, that's why I went to coconut, but it has like just that grainy freshness to it. It smells really nice. Slightly sweet up front. It has a nice fruitiness to it. Yeah, it's almost like that, as I was saying, it's like coconutty, it's a little bit fruity, nice and dry. It's with the grains showing through. Floral hopping to it. Comes with the grains on the back end. Quite nice. This one's quite floral and lemony. Very lemony. It smells more hoppy to me. Cheers. That's a different beer. That is sweet. It has a bouquet of just like potpourri dancing in there. It doesn't have that kind of like malt to it, that malt, grainy, husky thing. If you've never done it, go to a brewery. Ask them to just try some of the grains that they have in bags. They'll let you taste it. It costs nothing. And it really just has that kind of like, it's almost like eating raw bread, like not raw bread, but like lightly cooked bread, a little bit crusty. It almost has a light kind of uncooked thing going on. So sort of like if you just try to eat dry oatmeal, it's you know, it's a lightly kilned grain. So ask them for some Pilsner malts or something like that. But this one does have that quality coming in now that I'm waiting. It has that graininess to it. Now I'm not quite sure it's completely different from the first one. This one also has some of that lemony sweetness. Yeah, cheers. Jeez, that is so freaking hard. I'm blind on this one. You guys can see the color differences, and you guys probably think I'm a big idiot. Like, I'm telling you guys, this is hard. It almost tastes like the first one. It's just grainy, crisp, dry. Now, this one has to be different. It's nice to get a palate reset. This one just has a little bit more of that like bass tone to it. It almost has, instead of like pale flour and pale wheat and dough, this one has a little bit more just kind of like lightly toasty kind of like kiln quality to it. Let me see. Delectable beers though. But yes, this one to me perceives as the different one. Yeah, these two taste the same to me. Some people describe Pilsner malt as having a little bit of a white grape flavor to it, so like fruitiness. Quite nice. So yeah, pretty sure about it. Again, it's so hard to do blind taste tests, and sometimes you can even line up a blind taste test of 3 beers of the same and do a triangle test and try to trick somebody, and they'll just pick one of them. It's like, oh, that one's different, even though you serve them 3 of the same beer. I can say with decent confidence that this one's a different one, and these two the same. So these two have to be the Kolsch. This has to be the Helles. All right, got it. Right. Yes, clearly. I mean, you guys can see it from the camera, better angle than me, but they are quite similar though. And it's crazy that even after this and this, I was like not quite sure. And then that's why it's important to get a palate reset. Your perception of beer is so much defined by what you've been drinking and the surrounding beers around it. You might be drinking some really light lagers and then like have something that's just slightly different, and then all of a sudden it just tastes so different. It's sort of like a Pilsner might be so boring. A craft Pilsner might just be like bland, bland, bland. But if you get thrown that Pilsner after drinking something like Bud Light even, that beer will shine, of craft lagers will shine of hops and malt and just different profiles than your macro lagers. And that doesn't even have to mean that you're comparing macro versus craft. This is literally comparing attempts at traditional styles, and until you get that palate reset of going back to this one and you're like, oh yes, that's where the malt was. Because I went with this one first by randomness and the malt shined there. And then like it kept going down the road, not quite sure where to go. And then boom, you get that one back. And these are honestly very, very, very similar beers. I would not blame anybody for thinking that these 3 were completely, you're just given 3 of the same beers. I mean, full blind, they are quite similar, and I'd argue that it would take a discerning palate to really find that kind of trick of that malt showing through. It's reasonably there, but that's me saying, with some confidence that this being a decent taster. I'd say most people would not be able to tell full blind that these are different beers. They're just pale, light, crisp. The hoppiness is, it's there, but this is not Pilsner for sure, and it doesn't even have the bitterness there. So these are dry beers, not much bitterness. The malts are quite similar. There's, I guess, a wheat addition here, so that makes it a little bit different color-wise, but on the palate, this one has a full maltiness to it, but still, this is hard. So, for me, this was, fun, but I recommend that you guys try this out sometimes yourselves, and hell, you don't even need somebody to do it for you. I know that's a trick for a lot of issue for a lot of people. Maybe you don't have somebody to just blindly pour beers for you. Hell, get a blindfold, do it yourself, do a triangle test and see if you could discern the differences. And again, it's so much harder where you're not doing just 50-50 and just going back and forth, because, that would have been easier for me. But when I got into this one, I was like, shoot, are these 2 the same beer? Are they maybe 2 different beers? Who knows? And I'm just rambling on right now, but that's sort of the fun that I like enjoying with geeking out with you guys over stuff like this. So glad I got it right and didn't embarrass myself, but try it out yourself sometimes. Highly recommend it. Please post in the comments below if you like some recommendations for what you can do. You can pick out, boom, Weihenstephaner Original and Weihenstephaner Pils. You can do Allgäu White and Weihenstephaner Hefeweizen. You can do hard ones would be like something like a porter and an American porter and American stouts. Do a Bell's Oberon and an American IPA. Bell's Oberon, it tricked me. It's American wheat ale, but it's so hoppy. Try that one, and you're gonna have some fun. It's really fun to learn more about styles and learn more about your palates and really pick through the little differences. I mean, it's one thing to go to beer festival and it's like, oh yeah, that imperial stout tastes better than this imperial stout and that IPA. But when you're really digging through the nuances of these classic styles, it's very fun and very interesting. Until next time, guys. Cheers. Enough rambling from me. Until later. Cheers.